Hello, everyone, and welcome to the F.L.A.W.C, F-L-A.W.C channel with Anita and Cheryl. Woohoo! And we are just so inspired by so many people, and we have had the absolute privilege of meeting the most amazing people on the planet, and we wanted to just introduce our flock to our flock, because
exactly
we want to inspire you. And yeah, so Cheryl, you're going to introduce our guest today. I'm so excited.
I am so thrilled. This woman is so dynamic, has had the most fascinating journey that continues to unfold. She inspires thousands of people.
Wow.
I cannot wait for everybody to meet her. It is my honor, my absolute honor and delight to introduce everybody to Millie America Parmer. Yay! So
the
welcome.
Crowd goes wild.
It's so great to be here.
Confetti.
It's so great to be here. With that introduction, I'm like, do I know this woman? I want to meet that woman you just introduced, just so you know. Thank you. That was very fun.
So F.L.A.W.C stands for, I mean, it can stand for many things, and we always ask our guests later too if they want to, add their own interpretation to our acronym. But it, originally stands for Fruit Loop and Wind Chime Club, which, is an endearment that was coined by Lee Carroll many, many years ago. And so I think about, we all had a journey to get to our awakening, our spirituality, and, all of that. And so sometimes maybe we were, considered the odd duck in the flock. Do you think?
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So where did your spiritual journey begin, Millie? Did it come from family foundation, family values, or did you ever feel that you were the odd duck, or,
Oh Lord, you're not ready for this, Anita.
I was definitely.
I'm just saying.
My mother did not know what to do with me. My first experience, as far as I can remember, was when I was about 3 years old. And my mother had a stationary bike. We lived in Puerto Rico, and it was just she and I in this little 2-bedroom house. And she had the stationary bike in my room. And in the middle of the night, I heard someone riding the stationary bike. And I opened up my little eyes, and there was a woman riding the stationary bike. And she came up to my bed and she said to me, "I am your grandmother. I am the woman that you're named after." Her name was America. She was my father's mother. I never met her. She died way before I was born. And so we had these conversations in and out for many, many weeks. And then one day my mother heard me in the middle of the night, and she came to my room and she's like, "Who are you talking to?" And I said, "My grandmother, America." And I described her. I had never seen a picture of her. And I described her how she was. And my mother turned on every light in the house because she freaked out. She went and she grabbed a picture that I had, like exactly who I had, described. And my mother did not know after that what to do with me. She spent years taking me to therapists. She took me to psychologists. She finally took me later on to a spiritual group of women where they actually had me in a circle. And if you know anything about the Caribbean islands, there's a lot of magic, Santeria or whatever. There's different religions, but they had me beaten with twigs in my back and spit rum in my face to get whatever was inside of me. So I learned early on that having conversations with people that nobody else can see was definitely a no-no. And I bottled that up, and I suffered severe anxiety for most of my adult life. So it wasn't until I was 42 that I moved, that was 11 years ago, that I moved up to Asheville, and I left my ex of 18 years, that it opened up like a faucet, and I ended up having to go to a therapist for her to diagnose me with schizophrenia, because I wanted some meds so the hallucinations could go away. I was like, I don't want this. So I ended up at her on her chair across from her, itty bitty little lady. And she said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "I need for you to examine me for schizophrenia." And she said, "Well, have you been diagnosed before?" I go, "No, I'm a late bloomer, but I do know that I'm suffering from hallucinations." And to make a very long story short, she asked me at that moment, "Do you see anybody around me?" And I said, I do. And I described the woman that was with her. And all of a sudden she got up. She says, "I'll be right back." Now, I didn't have insurance at the time, so she was a very expensive therapist. She takes off for 10 minutes. And I am like, I am not going to pay this woman for the next 10 minutes, because this is my time.
Oh,
She goes back. You could tell she had been crying. And she sat there and she said, "Millie, I don't believe that you have hallucinations. I believe that you're seeing the other realm." And I'm so grateful that I went to somebody who was a therapist, but also in Nashville, that was spiritual, because it could have gone the other way. She could have just sent me to a psychiatrist, put me on pills that were not going to work, and cause me even more anxiety.
Yeah.
So yeah, and she did. She and I worked throughout for a bit with that. And then it wasn't until about a year later that I had a near-death experience on January 15th of 2014 that I really returned with some amazing gifts from the other side.
Wow.
I told you you weren't ready for this
story. Yeah, I'm just like, yeah. Okay, so tell us more. Tell us more. Yeah, Cheryl, what do you got?
Oh, yeah. She's so fun, this woman. And the fact that you're open and speaking about it, Millie, is huge, because like Anita, who had the foresight to capture the flock, the Fruit Loop and Wind Chimes Club, you're not alone. She's not alone. I'm not alone, right? So far, everybody that we have spoken with and interviewed totally relates to the black sheep, the woo-woo person, the one that the parents didn't know what to do with, right? So very few people were brought up in our generation anyway, and likely even earlier, to understand, right? Because it was, if you don't see it in the physical form, it doesn't exist.
Right.
Now, I have to say, in the physical form that does exist, and what I've been witnessing that you have created, is an incredible group on Facebook that I'm proud to be a part of. And I want you to tell people who it is and what it's all about and the basis of it. But your stories, your writing, your conversations with God,
those are my favorite.
Are Keanu Reeves or they're Richard Gere. Holy Lord, to get into this woman's mind is miraculous.
But I really do have them.
I know you do. So I would love for you to share with everybody a little bit about this, because it every time I read one of them, it blows my mind.
Thank you. Well, I have a business called Sacred Journey Inward, and the page is Sacred Journey, and the group is Sacred Journey Group. And basically, I started Sacred Journey a few years back because I had started a blog and it got momentum. And so I opened up a page, and the page has grown and it keeps growing. And I'm very blessed for everybody who stops by and loves to share their own stories in the group. And so the premises of the name is that we are all on a sacred journey. We are all traveling together, meeting each other, bumping into each other, and growing and expanding from our own lessons with each other. So that's the sacredness of the journey. And so in the group, I do share a lot of my meditation and my visions that I get to visit God as a big, bodacious Black woman, who's often, that's my favorite depiction of God. She is definitely this Jamaican, Caribbean woman with a very strong accent. And when I go into meditation and I go meet God, not just as Richard Gere or Keanu Reeves. I actually can feel my entire soul going into that dimension. And she has this little casita, this little cottage on the side of a Caribbean island. And from the back of it, where I always end up walking through, is a rainforest. And when I get to her house, it always smells like my grandmother's bread pudding. And she opens the door and she always has tea for me. And then through the back of her house is where the ocean is. And I meet people that have passed through there. Also, I visited with my mother. I have visited with an old lover. I have visited with my father. And I'm transported there. And sometimes in dreams, she comes as Keanu Reeves, and she's come as Richard Gere, and she's come as many faces. I am actually started a book. I'm writing a book called The Many Faces of God. And it's basically about all the people, not just in my meditation, but the amount of people. I used to own a motel retreat center, and the amount of stories that I have had of people that I feel were God at that very moment that I needed them, because we're all God. So to share those stories of just strangers, just being kind, or sharing a word, or just even without meeting them, but just observing life happening around them. Because if you really are in a spiritual journey, all you have to do is sit at a Starbucks or a coffee shop, sit down with your cup of coffee and watch the world around you. They're all giving you signs at the very moment, whether it's synchronicity or serendipitous, or however you want to see it. There's always such beauty observing the human spirit as it's happening, especially people that don't know that they're being watched. Those are my favorite. Like an airport for me is like, whoa, I'm in heaven, because I'm sitting there and I'm observing all these people. And the other place that I love to watch is, unfortunately, in a hospital. That's where you really see the human spirit. You open up any door inside of a hospital, and you have a million stories to tell, to share. So that's how Sacred Journey came about. And now it's, I'm trying to do, with Mindy, my best friend, we're trying to do a business, which is, do some classes and just, I want to hopefully keep writing. And
Awesome. Are you still with us?
I'm still with you. She's on a pause.
I'd love to let you know.
So Millie, so do you work with people like as a medium at all?
I'm starting to do it again. This has been a journey for me to actually even put myself out there in the last year and say, okay, I'm going to do intuitive readings. And usually the readings don't include so much cards as sitting with somebody and actually just allowing spirit to talk. It comes and goes. A lot of time I do it just for fun. It's not, it's, it's the messages come, and sometimes they're the most awkward messages that you could possibly get. And I have no problem letting them out, because if I don't know a person, it's so much easier than if I did know the person. As you all know, when you know someone, you let the ego kick in and you're like, I don't know if this is coming from spirit, or I just want this so badly for you, But when you don't know someone and they're giving you signs, and I just allow for them to just go, and then that's it, because I don't have to filter it. They're always so much easier when I don't know the person.
Right.
I'd agree.
Cool.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that.
And I think that we all, and I think that's part of the age of Aquarius that we're moving into. We were all born with these gifts, and like you as a child, when people didn't understand this intuitiveness and this connection with Source, with God, that because they didn't understand it, then they considered that it was not good or bad. And so then that kind of shuts off the spigot, right? It's like turning the water off. But I believe we were all born to have that connection, and that, this sacred journey that we're all on might be to reconnect to that source energy. And it's with people like you that open up the possibilities and open up the new awareness that somebody might consider that, hey, you know what, I kind of had similar experience, or, you know, and by telling our stories, we can connect to more people and hopefully, you know, collectively help them through their situation and help to elevate consciousness, right?
And it's happening right now. I see more and more people. That's why the groups are growing in many ways. After COVID, I think a lot of people are opening up to something that they can no longer just keep quiet. I think, you know, in the old days, we would have been burnt to the crisp, you know, in a cross or something.
Yep. And
but nowadays, it's like, yeah, we probably were. But nowadays, it's so common. And I'm grateful for like, people like crying on that for 30 years has been out there, or Adirondack. I mean, there are people out there that have been, you know, the trailblazers for us to be able to come out and go, okay, we're not going to get crucified.
It's me too. You know? It's me too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's very important that people realize that a lot of times, I mean, I was a guardian for several years, a guardian rep. So I would have clients that had dementia, or, you know, they had IDD, intellectual developmentally delayed. And a lot of times the ones that had schizophrenia, a lot of people get diagnosed, and it's really not so much a mental disorder as it is a spiritual awareness, that they're seeing and communicating with beings that no one sees. And so our society has just put a label on it, given them pills, put them in facilities, and forgotten about them. And it's very sad because it happens not just in the United States, it's all over the place. You know what I mean? Where people are now awakening to that and saying, no more. I mean, I might have a little, you know, I'm gonna be a little off.
Yeah.
I have to share this with you. So my life has been changing the last, you know, 8 months. And so I had gotten to some severe depression, and I had to get put on antidepressants, and I wasn't sleeping. And so I went to the doctor, and the doctor put me on these meds for nighttime so I can actually get some sleep. And one of the side effects is that you don't have hot flashes for women that are going through menopause, which is great. But the other thing, when I read to see, wow, I'm actually not getting hot flashes, I didn't know that it's also given to people with schizophrenia and hallucinations. And she didn't know anything about my hallucinations. But I called my friend one day and I go, I thought these pills were supposed to like take the hallucinations. And she says, because they're not hallucinations. Hallucinations, how can they take what you don't have? You're actually getting visited by people that nobody else can see. So I can tell you that the pills work in every way, but they're not taking the hallucinations away.
The one thing the pharmaceutical companies don't plan for.
No.
But enhance, right? And I've had conversations with other people that even children with ADHD.
Yes.
It has more to do with their intuitive gifts.
Yep.
I have 2 of them here.
And how your brain functions than it does with labeling them and drugging them so that they fit into the norm.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? Again, we can go back to our friend Lee Carroll and Jan Tober, who, you know, wrote the very first book on the Indigo Children. And yeah, I mean, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, I think it's a really cool time that we're in, you know, that we're all here, we're gathered, the flock is coming together to help bridge the gap for some people, and to help, you know, maybe help them understand what's been going on in their lives for all of these years, etc. Right? So that's pretty cool.
So question Millie, for you, Millie. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Cheryl.
I was just going to say, so do you have advice or suggestions for somebody watching this and there's people from all over the world that were probably beaten with a stick, you know, spit at, exercised, whatever they've gone through to this point, right?
Put on medicine.
Right. You know. Do you have some words of advice for them to step into them as gifts?
My biggest suggestion for people is to remove the fear of what you're feeling, because I think that lowers the frequency, and you go into this incredible amount of anxiety that it bleeds into all parts of your life. I think when you embrace who you are, and it's hard to say because, you know, if you don't know any better and your whole family has been telling you that you're a whack job, it's very hard to get that self-esteem back up when you don't really know anybody around you that feels or sees what you feel and see. I think you really have to honor your authenticity. God don't make no junk. It's all there for you. You're there to have those gifts. And the more you deny them, yes, you're going to have physical problems because, as Louise Hay says, you will manifest in your body those things you avoid to deal with. And so you will notice, one of the things that I noticed after I embraced everything is I used to have massive breast issues. I have had them cut up. I had so many issues in my physical body. And once I actually embraced 10 years ago, 11 years ago, my authenticity, my gifts that I thought anytime somebody would say, you have a gift, I was like, no, a gift you can get back. I can't get rid of this thing. You know, like, don't call it a gift. I would get very upset because I didn't want to have those feelings. I didn't want to see the visions. I didn't want to sit next to somebody in a movie theater and hear every thought that was coming through them because it was so intense. And so I stopped going to places that had a lot of people. And so I once I embraced all that, I had no longer had breast issues. I no longer had female issues. I began to dive into my own authentic self and love those parts of me that as a child were not loved, that were rejected in my family as like, she's a whack job, she's a hippie, she's this, she's that. I mean, I've heard them all. And you know what? I feel better than I've ever felt because it's me. Like I said, you can't be a mistake if you're here. And so my suggestion, my advice to people is, you know what? Find a tribe, find a group, get support from people that you can learn so much from. Because I'm always learning. I'm learning every single day. I read things sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I did not know that. And you know what I mean? I mean, that's the beauty of this. You're on a sacred journey. You're learning from each other. So that would be it. Instead of rejecting who you are, is really embracing who you are. Love who you are. And I know that's hard. I mean, it's hard when you've not been taught that. But the alternative kind of sucks, you know? It really does.
Wow. Well, we're definitely gonna, let everyone know where they can find you and, join the Facebook group or, join the flock, right? So I guess, what right now motivates you? What does the future Millie look like? What are you striving towards? What's motivating you to help people with their own spirituality?
This makes me happy. Having open forum communications with people about spirit, about their emotional bodies, storytelling, just being present and holding space for others. That's what gets me through. I love meeting new people, but I also love hearing from people and listening to their stories and observing life around me. That's what gets me going. I love that. And if I could make a living just writing books and sharing those stories, oh my God, I'm set for life, really. That's my passion. I call myself a story tender because you know how you got bartenders, people tell their stories to at the bar. Well, I'm a story tender. I tend to your stories when you tell them.
That's great. I love that. I'm writing that down. Okay. Story tender.
I am so happy to hear that you're writing a book.
Yes. Oh, I'm writing two, but that one I'm putting it all together with all the compilations of stories that I have shared. And that one's so much fun because boy, do I have a lot.
You do. Like, and I love reading them. It's like, oh my word, this woman has some fascinating adventures. I call them adventures. It's adventures through you, right? It's adventures through someone else's eyes and through their experiences. And I love it. I love you. And I love that you came on.
Thank you both for having me here, for having these conversations, for you guys doing the job that you're doing. that is needed in our humanity right now, because you're raising the bar, you're raising the consciousness, you're raising us to remember who we are and why we're here. So thank you so much for what you're doing. We need more of that. Appreciate it.
Well, you know, again, we're just having fun, right? That's another F word that we use all the time.
We're fascinated by our guests. We have fun with our guests.
Right. Yeah,
and we
fabulous.
Say
yep.
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah, we use the F word a lot. Okay, before we let you go though, Millie, this is always a fun thing. So what do you do? What do you do for fun? Like what gets you juiced? You know, what does Millie do?
I laugh a lot.
And yeah, so
inappropriately. I try to make, I mean, I'm a really sarcastic person, and I know it's not like I'm hiding anything. You know, they say that sarcasm is hiding some kind of, you know, no, I laugh a lot. I try to find the joy even in the worst of situations, sometimes very inappropriately. But I do spend a lot of time hiking and a lot of time in nature, and I love having time with my children. That's what brings me the most joy. I learned so much from just the last 2 little ones. I have 8 altogether, but the last 2 are just, they're a bundle of joy. As much work as they are, they're fun, and you can learn so much from the children. So that's what I do for fun. I mean, I really do. I love my life where it is right now, and it's taken me 5 decades to finally say that. Yes, it's a good place. It's a really good place.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You guys are wonderful.
You too.
Well, you know, we're going to have you on again because, you know, we'll just have to, because we want to hear more stories, because you are the story tender. Hello, right? It'll just be another story down the road. And in the meantime, sacred journey, we're all on this beautiful sacred journey together, and we're blessed that our sacred paths have crossed.
Absolutely.
Cheryl, do you have anything to add?
I do not. I just appreciate this woman so much. I've enjoy your Sacred Journeys group on Facebook. The stories themselves they're precious. They're absolutely precious. And I am thrilled that I've gotten to know you. So
likewise, both of you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for joining our flock.
My pleasure.
We're taking flight. And buckle up, girls. We're taking flight. Here we go.
Excellent.
Okay, awesome.